Welcome to Liberty FM, the podcast dedicated to all things New York Liberty. I'm Felicia, and I'm joined by my co-host, Francois. For this week, we will be talking about the Liberty's final game out west versus the Phoenix Mercury, and then their return home to face the LA Sparks. We could look at this as a tale of two cities, but let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. And we knew that on Tuesday, the games against the Phoenix Mercury would be a tough game. The Phoenix Mercury are on a high right now, and they finally have their full squad back with BG and Rebecca Allen. So we knew it was going to be a tough game, and it's a team that has a fast tempo and shoot a lot of frees. And it was pretty much a 3-point galore in this game, back and forth on both sides. But I would say that, the key in this game, I think, were BG and Rebecca Allen, the two people that were missing for the first part of the season. And I was kind of curious to see how JJ and the Liberty were going to handle BG. But I felt like BG was the sort of disruptor in this game by setting screens that allow a lot of movements from the other Mercury players and give them, open shots, especially from the frees from, Rebecca Allen, Sophie Cunningham, Taurasi. And I felt like the Liberty kind of struggled on that end. What did you make overall of that game?
Yeah, I mean, with BG back in the lineup, that's a game changer for Phoenix. It's a different team when she's there. Obviously, for this game, this is the first time I would have to say that looking at JJ, that she looks smaller. Not that much smaller, but she did. I mean, obviously BG's taller, but it's just, that was the first time just seeing JJ wow, there's someone actually bigger than JJ out there, and it wasn't easy. And yeah, with BG back in and back at a good level, in comparison of when you saw her return last year, obviously there, a lot had happened, and her return back to the game was huge, but, she needed time. And I think last year was just kind of that introductory year of just ramping back up. And this year, she had a foot injury earlier in the season, and now coming back and also having Rebecca Allen back, that spaces your floor. And with Rebecca Allen shooting threes, it's, obviously Rebecca Allen played for the Liberty. She was one of my favorite players on the Liberty at the time. And now with Phoenix, you know how dangerous she can be. And they showed that tonight. And I think the 3-point barrage by both teams was crazy. But Phoenix was more efficient. They only attempted 33s, and made 15 of them. So they were at 50%. Whereas the Liberty were, I believe, 18 for 42, which in my mind is just way too many threes. You missed way more threes than you made. And I think that was also the difference maker in this game.
Yeah, I mean, to go back on BG, I think people forget that she spent almost a year in a Russian prison, and not just your regular prison where you have some sort of rights, right? It was tough conditions. So to be, living in those conditions for almost a year and then come back, for her to have the mental strength to, come back on the court, was one thing, but to get athleticism back, that was another thing.
Yeah.
Because the BG before, that thing, she would dunk quite a few times in the game. She would attack the basket aggressively. And last year you could tell she was a little slow, a little sluggish, and that it would take time for her to get athleticism back. And you saw in this game, and so far since she's been back this season, she's adding she has the athleticism back, but I think she added more things into her game. She's a more composed and higher IQ player. I mean, she always had a high IQ, but the way she plays the game, she kind of slow things down, and she could shoot threes now. She has great passing abilities, and I felt like she was a difference maker in this game. There was a play that the Phoenix Mercury did almost every single time. Not almost every single time, but numerous times in this game. And it's the Spain play. So to kind of break it down, you have the guard, receiving a screen from the 5 player, setting a screen, and so that could give a couple of options with the pick and roll. But then the 2 guards set a screen to the center that just set a screen to the point guard. And then after that, it's up to the player to sort of read the game and see what's going on. And so the 2 guard that set the screen to the 5 would then after that cut to the arc, and sometimes we'll have an open shot. And Phoenix did that quite a few times with Clouds, Griner, and Diana Taurasi. And the number of times where Taurasi got wide open as a result of that play, for someone that was questioned as to whether they deserved the spot in the U.S. team, she's 42 years old. She has just beat the record for the most number of games with more than 20 points for someone over the age of 40. She just beat Michael Jordan. I mean, any stats where you beat Michael Jordan, that says a lot, right? And so she ended up with 19 points, and she was 4 for 7 from the free, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and she had a couple of daggers against the Liberty at times where it was really tight. And unfortunately, some lapses on defense, particularly Fiebich, where towards the end of the game, we'll get back more specifically to the end of the game, but where she kind of gambled because she thought that Taurasi was going to pass to the corner and give her enough space to shoot free, and you don't let Taurasi a tiny bit of space to take a free.
That play was pretty horrendous because you never leave Taurasi ever by herself. Yeah. She's a 3-point dagger. She can make it even with a hand in her face. So, there were a lot of defensive lapses in this game and just lack of communication. I think for the Liberty, also, you could tell they were a bit everywhere for this game. They had moments where they locked in, but the lapses really, cost them, because usually those lapses led to a 3-point bucket most of the time. And so that just puts them in a hole. And I think the Liberty, when they can play together and really string things together and stay locked in, they're a top team, and they're tough. They're tough to beat. But when you have lapses and, just indecisiveness on the court and the speed of Phoenix, that was one thing I noticed in this game, was that Natasha Cloud, Kalia Copper, the speed at which they can take off. It just felt like the Liberty, they weren't prepared for it. I'm sure they looked at scouting reports. I'm sure they know all of this, but obviously what you can read and see in video is way different than when you're on the court. And so executing that was difficult for the Liberty. And, Fiebich just didn't have a good game. Yeah. I think Fiebich is still a huge piece for the Liberty because she provides that length. And she's a really good defender, but in this game, she just didn't have a good game.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that kind of worries me with the Liberty. There's not a lot of things that worry me because they've had a tremendous season. But on defense, I've seen a lot of players, the players like you mentioned, like Natasha Cloud and Kalia Copper, who have speed that just drives to the basket. Yeah. And I feel like there's nobody really there to stop them. Mm-hmm. If the guard's being, then there's nobody else that come and help. And I've noticed that a few times. So, when I'm looking at all the teams that have those kind of players, I know Chicago, who's not one of the best teams in the league, but has a lot of talent. Kennedy Carter had done that quite a few times against us in the 2 matchups that we had in this regular season.
Even with Connecticut.
Yeah.
You see that
Tiffany Mitchell.
Yeah, you see that with guards. If they can
take Carrington.
If they can take off, and especially if JJ or Stewie are not nowhere near the basket, it's easy. It's an easier bucket. Or, because in this game with Phoenix, JJ, you have to respect BG. You can't just leave her, either. And so, I think in this game it required more maybe Stewie, which she did get a couple of blocks. They both did. But that's tough when a player takes off and your defender's beaten, and you leave it to other defenders. There were definitely times where you felt like, yeah, once Natasha Cloud took off, no one's defending her.
Yeah.
She beats her defender, and by the time anyone realizes it, she's already at the basket. So just the lapses for the Liberty, they have to tighten that up. They have to clean that up, in the future. And I think they can do that. They just, with this team, you can't really have these lapses because, initially when they played Phoenix, BG was not there, nor was Rebecca Allen. And they only beat Phoenix by 3 points in that game, I think. And so, for this game, with both players back from injury and still playing at a very high level, these are the times where lapses just can't, you can't have them because they're coming out, they're at home, which obviously Phoenix at home is
it's a different team.
It's a different team than when they're on the road.
The X Factor, the crowd, they call it the X Factor. And they definitely play a part just like the Liberty fans when New York is at home.
Yeah, and you saw that in this game. I mean, yes, we can talk about officiating and some of the horrible calls, and we see all the stuff as well.
Well, let's actually talking about it because, fair enough, Phoenix beat us fair and square. Like, there were lapses on defense and things that the Liberty could have done better to really give them a chance to win this game. But once again, it's sad that we once again have to talk about the officiating because that played a big part in this game. So the game was kind of going back and forth between the two teams. We had slight lead. I mean, we had like a 10-point lead in the third quarter, and we kind of crumbled at the beginning of the fourth. And Phoenix came back. Rebecca Allen, Becky with the good hair, has the always the DJ would play at the Barclays when she would score. She allowed Phoenix to come back, but it was kind of going back and forth towards the end of the game, and two bogus plays. Let's just call it like that. There was a play where Kayla Foran had a corner free, and I was so happy because I was like, oh wow, like that's a 4-point play, like that's crazy, like that brings us back to the game and gives us some momentum. And then all of a sudden I see the ref on the side that points the sign for an offensive foul, and I was shocked. Like, normal speed, you clearly see that there was no foul from Kayla Foran. And then I must have watched that replay like 1,000 times to try to see where the foul was. And there was nothing. Shook Sun that was guarding KT jumped towards her and actually bumped KT. KT fell. And it's only towards the end when she fell because you jumped towards her that her leg kind of like went, a certain ways and certain fell. But that was not a foul from KT. Like, she had already taken a shot. The defender is jumping towards you and make you lose your balance. That should have been the 3 points and a hand one. And that turned into an offensive foul.
I think that part, that's the fourth quarter. I think at that point, that was the momentum changer.
Yeah. You saw how upset Katie was, and usually she's pretty composed.
And even if she gets upset, she can gather herself. But this time, and she had every right to be upset because looking back at that play, you can slow it down. She did not kick out on her shot. I think that is. I don't know what that ref saw when they went down. Her feet only came down because, Suge ran into her basically and, bumped into her and they both fell. And so that's when her legs came out. But yeah, going up for that shot, it was, it's really an indefensible whistle. Like, and they gave Sandy Brondello no explanation, which in my mind, when you can't even give an explanation,
that is very telling.
It's telling that you blew a whistle and you shouldn't have. And it's just, unfortunately, Sandy had used her challenge earlier in the game, and so she couldn't hear. And that's tough because I think this is a call that could have been reversed. And it's hard, and I think this was definitely a gut punch to the Liberty, because after that, I mean, I feel like it just handed momentum to Phoenix.
So the second play that was also controversial was a pick and roll with Sab and JJ, and JJ got an offensive foul for an illegal screen. Same thing. You rewatch the play. The screen is set like she's standing still. I don't see where the foul is.
I think the ref said she stuck. Either it was from her back or her butt.
What, did the dreadlocks move or something?
Yeah, I think basically the explanation the ref gave was either that she moved her back out or her butt out, and it was wild because when you think about other games or other teams and people like Alyssa Thomas who do that all the time, she knows exactly how to like stick her butt out just a little bit,
and few elbows in there,
and then brings it back in. Like when you see replays, sometimes she sticks out just enough, and then she sticks it back in. And I'm like, she never gets called. And in this, JJ did not move, and they're like, yeah, your butt stuck. Just whatever slight movement that could have been, whatever this phantom movement was, they called it an offensive foul, and it's just officiating. Regardless, in the WNBA, you got to do better, and this is something that people have talked about for many years, and being, people who watch the WNBA and the NBA, I have to say, the officiating between both leagues, the gap is so wide, because yes, NBA officials can get it wrong too. They can mess up and have frustrating calls, but it's not to the degree, or nowhere near the degree that you see in the WNBA. The WNBA, I feel like every team can have a grievance, because every single team that you watch, you're like, what call is that? Like, why? Like, they've made jokes about it. Like, when you see players get explanations and they're looking at the ref like, what? Like, and you're just, the level of the refs in this league, it's frustrating. I mean, again,
this shouldn't be the story.
They shouldn't be the story. They should not be able to control the game in terms of scoring and the advantages that teams have. Obviously, in this game, these were two huge calls, but at the same time, there were still lapses for the Liberty. The Liberty no team will ever say, like, the officiating lost them the game, because at the end of the day, there are things that the team also has to work on. The Liberty only lost by 6, and when you think about, that 4-point play would have been huge.
Oh, but Fee, I'm not done. There was a third one too.
Oh, okay.
Now, before I mention the third one, the illegal screen by JJ, or the fictional illegal screen by JJ, I think that was a 4th or 5th foul. So it was already hard enough, because with BG, like usually, like the Liberty this year have switched a lot. And they have that option because JJ is such a great player that she could even switch on guards. But with BG, she couldn't do that as much because she's a threat. So it's kind of like covering a little bit, the guard, but you have to stay on BG. But now with 4 or 5 fouls, that makes it even harder. And you saw BG towards the end, she started attacking the basket more. So that was an issue. But the last bogus play was, so at some points the Liberty were attacking. Benajeleni had like a 3-pointer that she missed, but all of a sudden you hear the ref calling a foul, and so you wonder what's happening, and they called a foul on Taurasi, that foul Fiebich, as she was cutting to the basket, and so they were in the bonus, so they gave 2 free throws to New York. Fiebich is at the free throw line, has the ball, and then, all of a sudden, Phoenix, after a lot of time, normally you should have lost your opportunity to challenge that, but they decided to challenge that play, that call. And after review, the referee, Taurasi kind of like disrupted Fiebich a little bit. Was it enough to call it a foul? That's arguable. But basically, they said that the challenge was successful, that it was not a foul. So it was jump ball, BG versus JJ, BG is probably one of the few players that, maybe the only player that can beat JJ at the jumbo. Phoenix won the jumbo, and that ended up with a Spain play that led to a Taurasi three-pointer, and that was kind of like the play that I had in mind when Fiebich
left her.
Should have covered. Taurasi decided to leave the assignment to cover the person that was there at the corner three, and Taurasi punished them, gave them a 3-point lead that the Liberty didn't recover from. And then you start regretting Sandy Brondello when she challenged early in the game an offensive foul by Benaja Leonie. The referee decided that it was an offensive foul, and there were a couple of times where Sandy could have challenged, particularly that corner three by Katie, and she couldn't, unfortunately. And I think that's definitely something that her and the team are going to have to work on. We've mentioned it quite a few times in that podcast that it is an area where they're a little too slow to react. I watched a couple of games from the Phoenix Mercury, and the coach from the Mercury does not hesitate to take challenges.
He's very quick. He's a lot quicker, but I don't.
Except for that one. That one.
But I don't know if it's the staff or if it's him. When you see him call, challenges, I don't know what. It just seems either they're more locked in, because I feel like when you see the Liberty side, and if Sandy turns to her team, they always look like unsure.
Yeah.
They never seem, it's almost like, are you watching the play?
Yeah.
Are you paying attention? Are you looking up at the screen to help the coach out if in case she didn't catch everything? Like, what's happening? Because sometimes, a lot of the time, Sandy turns to her team and they're looking at each other like, I don't know, did you see it? Did you see it? And it's just like, guys, like, you gotta help her out. Like, she's looking at the core, and sometimes she can catch it, and sometimes she can look up at the board, but like, like, you guys got to have her back, and it just feels like they don't half the time. And so, in this game, it's tough with the challenges, because even for Fiebich, I was wondering to myself, like, should Fiebich have just taken the shot real fast and she had the ball in her hand, which would have negated him ever having to call that timeout? But I don't know. I don't know how quick. I felt like maybe she could have taken her first free throw, and then, it would have been too late. But I don't know. It happened. Again, the officiating in this game was horrendous, to say the least. But again, there were still lapses. I think for Sandy and the coaching staff, they just have to work better, I think, at getting the team ready for certain opponents.
Yeah.
Like, the Liberty seemed a bit off in decision making. I have to say, like, I think for them, whoever brings the ball up is huge. And I think with Sloot out, it should be Sabrina or Stewie. Or even if Dojkic comes in for Sab, or when she's in the game. To me, those are your three players that can bring the ball up.
Yeah.
Anyone else, it gets shaky. I think when you see Benaja bringing the ball up, for some reason, Benaja is great. Obviously, she is the glue for this team. But for some reason, when she brings the ball up, her decision making is slow.
Yeah.
She is not as quick. She's not as decisive. And I'm not sure. I love Benaja. She's one of my favorite players. But when you see her sometimes driving to the basket when Stewie's calling for the ball, and the decision making is just not smart. Or even on the play that she got called for an offensive foul, Stewie's running with you. Like, she's the big.
Yeah, she was just
like,
right there.
She was right there. She's the big. You could easily toss it up. She got the length, and Stewie can jump. Like, it baffled the mind that you tried to take on Natasha Cloud, who, if you remember Natasha Cloud, not just this year, but last year, she is one of the elite defenders in this game. Like, and she backs down to no one. And in that moment, when you see these plays, you're like, what's the thought process right now? Like, where's your mind right now in these? And you can see it when she makes passes sometimes. It's almost like she's second guessing herself. Whereas when you see Sabrina or even Dojkic pass the ball, they're very crisp. They're very decisive. And if it's not a play they can make, they'll dribble it back out. Sometimes Benaja stops her dribble and then she's caught. And then it's like, if she goes, it's going to be a travel. It's a turnover. It's something else. And I just think that maybe ball handling, just bringing it up the court. Like, let Benaja do other things and get around the court, but maybe not bring the ball up so much.
I mean, it's definitely, for her to be a playmaker, is definitely a learning curve. I think that, when you look back at her first season with the Liberty, where she was an all-star in her first season and was the leading scorer for the Liberty that year, she had, quite a bit of, playmaking duty with Sab. Mm-hmm. So she has the capability, but it's still a learning curve, and she unfortunately has made a lot of mistakes since Sloot has been out of the team, because now she has more of that responsibility. I feel like Benaja works better if, for example, you give her the ball at the post, because she's so versatile and physical. She can beat pretty much anybody at the post. Or if she has the ball by the arc, like, I feel like when she attacks the basket, she's very good at that, because she has a quick dribble to beat you one-on-one. But when it comes to, like, playmaking and playing for others, unfortunately, she has turned the ball quite a few times. And, her decision-making has been at times a little worrying. So it is definitely an area of growth for her. But like you said, I think I would prefer Stewie to some degree as the second sort of guard, or the person that kind of takes charge of dribbling the ball. And then you also see JJ. JJ has being a record, twice. I mean, she had 7 assists against the Mercury, and then the game that we're going to talk about after against the Spark, she had 8 assists, where she beat her career high. She has a great passing ability, so maybe try to do more of that, and she could dribble as well. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want JJ to be the point guard, but passing ability is amazing. So something to think about for the Liberty. At least one positive thing I would say was Breanna Stewart, who found a rhythm again in that game. She's currently shooting 17% from the free, which is the worst percentage of her career. And she was 4 for 4 in this game. Yeah. And when she was asked, she said that she was continuing to be confident and be aggressive, little things like keeping the ball tight and getting my legs underneath me. But she knows that she's a great shooter. The shots didn't fall earlier, but they're gonna for the rest of the season. So that was definitely a positive. On the other end, Sab was usually so great at the three-point line. She started 3 for 3 from the three-point line in the first quarter. She already had double digits in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. But I felt like afterwards she forced a lot. She had a couple of open shots at the end, but 4 for 14 from the three-point line. You never want to see Sab shooting 14 threes in a game.
Yeah, I mean, making 14 attempts and only landing 4 of them in a game, it's too many.
Yeah.
It's too many, and that puts you in a hole, because the problem for the Liberty is that what I typically see from them is when someone shoots a 3 and they miss, by the time that shot is up, they're sort of trying to get back on defense. There's a lag with them. Yeah. The transition defense just kind of lags. And usually what ends up happening is that you give advantage to the other team, to your opponent. And typically, well, in this game, Phoenix made them pay. And, with Taurasi hitting 3s, Sophie Cunningham hitting 3s.
Becca Allen,
she had a barrage of 3s herself. And so, it's tough when you're not quick to get back on defense after putting up a 3 or turnover, whatever it is. But yeah, that's too many 3s to be attempting instead of maybe just driving more to the basket, playing for JJ. Yes, BG's a big presence, but make the battle under the basket. At that point, it's like, a lot of teams, whether it's WNBA or NBA, the 3 ball is the thing now. Everybody wants to shoot 3s. Everybody's trying. And when it goes in, it's spectacular. You're getting a lot of points real fast. But when it's not going in, it's almost like teams continue to do it. Yeah. Like, when it's like, try something else, because you're missing 3s. The other team's making points on the other end, and you keep shooting 3s, and it's not working. And it's like, do something else.
Yeah, and it's not like the Liberty don't have any other options.
Yeah.
And they usually have a variety of plays that they could do against any team. And you would want to make work the defense quite a bit, tire them, and have the best possible shot. But if you take a quick free and you miss, and with a team like Phoenix that plays so fast, that plays against you. So definitely something to be mindful of, to not to take so many frees and not so quick. But it is what it is. They lost by 6. And you have to move on from that game and just focus on the next game ahead.
They were on a 9-game,
8-game winning streak,
and this was their first loss. So it's not, yes, you don't like to see your team lose, but in the scheme of things, they're still doing pretty well. There are going to be some losses. No one likes to lose, obviously. But yeah, they still have to manage, just locking in with certain teams like Phoenix, Minnesota, some of these bigger teams. Like there's things that they're going to have to clean up to get better at.
Yeah, so now let's move on to the next game against the LA Sparks on Thursday. A lot of, sad news that kind of happened in that lapses between the Phoenix game and the LA Sparks game. First of all, thoughts and prayers to Cameron Brink, who sadly torn her ACL on the same day on Tuesday against the Connecticut Sun. So she's out for the season, unfortunately. Such a shame because she showed a lot of promises on the court and off the court as well, like as an ally, for a lot of communities. And the fact that she was gonna play for the 3-on-3 Olympic team, for the U.S. Olympic team. So such a sad, loss for the Sparks and for the WNBA. I'm sure that a lot of people, whether they're Sparks fans or not, wanted to see her play at the Barclays. So she wasn't going to be there for this matchup and the matchup, on Saturday. And then Benaja Luni, we had the news, just before the game, that, she has soreness in her knee, and so she will be out for that game. And Leonie Fiebich would get her first start in her WNBA career. So that left the Liberty with only 8 players on their rotation for that game. And then when we went to the game, the players were warming up, and then all of a sudden you saw the Liberty lining up, which was kind of strange because usually they don't, they don't stand on the court for the national anthem. They usually step on the sides. But we saw that it wasn't for the national anthem, and the Liberty shared the sad news that Courtney Vandersloot's mother had passed away. And so, it was very shocking and sad to hear that news. Thoughts and prayers, to Vandersloot and her family in this really difficult time. But there's no word really, for, someone losing a parent. And so that sort of created like a sadness and a lot of emotions before the game. And you knew that the Liberty were going to play for her. They've been playing for her since she's been out, but, that had that extra emotion for that game. And I don't know if that played a part or not in the start of the game. That was a little tough for the Liberty to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, Sloot is the general, and you knew when she was out that it probably dealt with her mom. Her mom's been very sick, and Sloot has done so much to raise funds and do so much to shine a light on her mother's condition and the illness, and so it's just heartbreaking because you knew that it was probably coming, but again, it's hard losing a loved one and seeing them battle through and so for the Liberty, they've been playing, obviously with Sloot on their mind and just making sure they stay strong when she's back, they're going to be there for her. They're going to rally around her whenever she decides to make her return. But yeah, it's tough. But to see them, just have that moment, for Sloot and just show that love to her on the court. When she's back, hopefully, she's back for a home game and she'll feel the tremendous love from the fans and everyone just rooting for her and supporting her in a big way.
Yeah, and for the Liberty, this it also brings a lot of questions as to what do you do, because you have Vandersloot out indefinitely because there's no there's no expiry date when it comes to grieving. So I'm sure that the Liberty is gonna allow her to take as much time as she needs to face this tough situation. You have Sabally. They haven't really communicated at the moment on how long she's gonna be out. They said day to day, but they haven't really given any other indication as to how soon she'll be back. We saw her during the game. She was standing up and cheering for her team, but she was wearing that sort of thing around her back to maybe sort of warm up the muscles or kind of help her getting better. So she's still out, and now you have Benaja who's out. I'm sure that they were trying to be cautious because there's a lot of important games ahead, including the Commissioner's Cup game on Tuesday. But there were only 8 players, so there comes the question as to whether they should get a hardship contract. Problem is, they only have $30K in the salary cap, so if you have a hardship contract, that takes money out of your salary cap, and I'm sure that the Liberty were probably waiting maybe for after the Olympic to get a 12th player and really make a push for the title. If you get a hardship contract, maybe you lose the opportunity to maybe get a veteran player or someone available that could really boost your team. Mm-hmm. So a lot of questions for the Liberty. The first thing that comes to mind for a lot of Liberty fans is Jalen Sherrod. Mm-hmm. It was interesting because one of the journalists that follows the Liberty noticed that during the pregame or the warm up and on the boards on the jumbotron they had put Sherrod's name in there. So it could be a coincidence. We don't know, but she's definitely the first player in mind as a sort of hardship contract that could help the Liberty. But I'm sure that the Liberty could maybe wait later down the road to see if they could get someone with more experience.
Yeah, I think the Liberty, they right now, with the team that they have and the games that they have ahead, they did well in this game against the Sparks. We haven't even gotten to that part yet, but it wasn't their best, but they did get the win against the Sparks. With the team as constructed, they can play the Sparks. Now, Minnesota, Connecticut, teams like that, that's going to be different. I don't know.
You need more bodies, definitely.
You need more bodies. And I think, maybe they're holding Yara Sabally for Minnesota, for the Minnesota game on Tuesday. Who knows? It's not necessary that she comes in for the Sparks game if everyone stays healthy as it is right now who's playing, because I think they have enough to handle the Sparks. But when it comes to a team like Minnesota, you're going to need Sabally. You're going to need extra, because I think the previous game against Minnesota, they really got to JJ. So you're going to need Sabally's help. And I mean, we'll see. We don't know. They haven't given much information on Sabally, and she's day to day. So hopefully by Tuesday, maybe she's ready to come in for a few minutes. We'll see. But I think after the break, with Marine Johannes not scheduled to come back to the Liberty this year, I don't know who else you would get. You definitely need speed. And Sherrod provides speed. She provides defense. A quickness and defense that the Liberty need. Is she the player? We'll see. She could be. She could be that X factor, because coming in the middle of a season where you're not used to that player and she is so quick, she can provide that spark for the Liberty that they're looking for.
Yeah, we'll see. That we don't know. We're not the general manager, but I hope they will communicate something very soon. But to go back into the game, very sluggish start for the Liberty against the Sparks, who have literally nothing to lose. If I'm the Sparks, to be honest, I want to lose as many games as possible, because if you look at last season and this season, if they once again don't make the playoff and have a bad record, that would give them a tremendous chance to have the #1 draft pick. And you know that it's probably going to be Paige Becker. So you're the Sparks, you don't want to win games, but you still want to sort of pretend to be competitive.
No, I know. They want to be competitive.
They want to be competitive, and they give a hard time to the Liberty. Yeah. And if it wasn't for Sabrina Ionescu and Jonquel Jones, I'm not sure we would have won that game. Yeah. First time in the history of the WNBA that you have two players in one game that have 20 plus points and 8 assists. And that tandem, we've been talking about it for quite some time now. Yeah. But it's becoming the Shaq and Kobe, the Carmelo and John Stockton duo. I don't know.
We need a Nate. I mean, yes, it's Sab and JJ. I just feel like, you know how some people create these they put names together to create this duo. I mean, it could just be Sab and JJ. We can leave it at that. But yeah, this tandem that they have and the way they play off each other, and it is a thing of beauty when they get going, and it's going to be key for the Liberty down the stretch. This is going to be huge. As you see it unfold, it's going to be key. Because you also got Stewie, that is also another X factor in there, that Sab's passing is also something to behold. And it's something that her vision of the court, her ability to get to the open man is big for the Liberty, because her passing, especially to Stewie and JJ, sometimes it's elite, and that really, really lifts the team. And she did a phenomenal job today. I mean, she was playing defense, and she has been playing defense, but I feel like she took it up a notch.
That was definitely one of the best games on defense. Like, to be able to see it up close. And the fact that she was making effort, like, pretty much the entirety of the game. Yeah. Like, she was out there. And when she was I felt like the switching was much quicker for her to be able to guard someone else, and whoever is out there to help her will switch. And when you have someone like Fiebich that offers such versatility, because she's 6'4", but she could guard pretty much any position. Mm-hmm. And for Sab to be able to rely on someone like Fiebich, really helped her in this game. But overall, I didn't feel like she needed a lot of help from other people. She was out there, like, defending really, really tight against whoever she was guarding, and that was great to see. And then in terms of offense, we complained about the fact that they were shooting too many threes against Phoenix and too many quick threes. And I felt like in this game, they brought more variety to their game. They often like to do the UCLA play, where you have like someone setting a screen for someone that cuts the basket, and then whoever has the ball will have the ability to pass the ball to that person that is cutting. But they did the Spain play that the Phoenix Mercury killed them, in the previous game. They did that a couple of times for Sab, and you much rather seeing Sab shooting a free after a nice set rather than just like, oh, let me just take a quick free. And I felt like her decision-making when it came to shooting threes in this game was much better. And there were times when everything clicks for the Liberty, it is a thing of beauty, but it's deadly for the other team. Mm-hmm. There was a moment in the third quarter when they had, I think, 3 threes in a row, 2 by Sab, including one where there was a behind the back pass by Fiebich for a corner free for Sab that was kind of like, sort of leaning afterwards, happy to have that free. And then the third one was JJ in transition where she had a free. And all of a sudden, it was a tight game, and all of a sudden, they were up by 11 to 12. And that, obviously you hope that it will happen every single time. But when it does, it's incredible.
It can go quick. But again, this game, the basketball can be a game of runs. And that's, what happened in this game. As they take that lead, this was well into the third the third quarter was a strong quarter for them, which gave them, I think, that edge going into the last part of the game. And so they did well, and I would like to commend them for also doing well in the second quarter, because usually the second quarter is their nemesis, it seems. And so they actually won that quarter, not by much, but they didn't do too bad. They stayed in the game, and so I was proud of that, just to see them. The only quarter they lost was the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Because the Sparks did make a comeback there. But they did well today, I think, defensively. And you're at home and you have the crowd behind you. Yes, there's still going to be some lapses that they need to clean up, and they definitely had that on the court today. And some of the turnovers, they have to get a bit crisper and faster with their passing, because they definitely got picked off a few times by the Sparks with their passing. It was a bit, maybe, I don't know if lazy is the word. It just seemed slow. And so the Sparks are just also quick and trying to get in transition and get a bucket. But the Sparks have, they have pieces on that team. The loss of Cameron Brink is huge. Even for her being a rookie, she's still a big presence, and she's going to be huge for them. When she recovers from this knee injury and comes back, she's still going to be a big presence for them. And the Liberty still have to lock in. Again, this is not a team, for the Sparks, it's not a team that's projected to make it into the playoffs, or, they're sort of rebuilding the team, but still, they're going to play hard. They're going to play tough. They want to win. The Liberty they have to stay locked in. And it wasn't the best game by the Liberty, but it was much better execution than what they had against Phoenix. So kudos to them. Kudos to Sab and JJ. That tandem, that game that they are developing, and it's getting stronger and stronger. They got to use that more. And like I've always said, you got to keep feeding JJ. Just, she, in this game in particular, where you don't have Cameron Brink, you were getting their five in trouble very early and foul trouble really early. You need to keep feeding JJ. And it started to happen more in the second half.
It took them some time to feed JJ in the paint, because, I don't know. I felt like it was in the second quarter that they once again realized, I think we need to feed JJ in the paint. But in the end, she did her thing. And once they started feeding her in the paint, she was dominating as usual. I talked briefly about Fiebich, but even though she didn't have a great shooting night in that game, she did everything else so well.
She can guard.
She could guard, definitely. Yeah. There was that play to end the second quarter. She was guarding Lexi Brown, and she locked her in. She locked her in so much that Lexi Brown completely forgot that there was only like 4 or 5 seconds left, and she kept on dribbling, and then
time ran out.
And she's like,
that's also on her team. That's also on Lexi Brown's teammates not telling her the clock, not counting it down for her, saying 2 seconds or anything. Everybody's just watching the play occur and the clock wind down. And Fiebich, even though I think she scored a 3 late,
an important 3 towards the end of the game,
but she did her thing, whether it was rebounding, guarding. She did all the little things. It's kind of like Stewie. If Stewie's not having a good shooting night, she's going to do all the other things well. And that's what Fiebich did tonight. She didn't have a great shooting night, but she defensively and just being there, assist-wise, rebound, she did
9 rebounds, 5 assists.
She did everything else to help her team get the win, even though offensively she wasn't great. And also, can we talk about Dojkic?
Yes, as much as we criticize her or that she frustrated us, that was probably one of her best games yesterday against the Spike. She was more decisive in the way she was playing.
Yeah, and she played with confidence.
She played with confidence, attacking the basket, less undecisive in the shooting and decision making. And we knew she was going to have playing time today. We were not necessarily confident that she would deliver, but she actually did the job. And, if she could play at that level more consistently, that would really help the Liberty.
She's also quick.
Yeah.
She's also quick. I think, there were times where where the Liberty were, there were these lapses or these kind of low moments where, or just stagnant, I guess, is the word. And nothing was really going on, and she'd come in and take off to the basket just to try to get something going. And the time she took off to the basket, it was a foul. And so she would get to the free throw line. So she provided a good spark tonight. Everybody who played, everybody had to play tonight. Everybody participated. Even Marquisha Davis came in and got her first actual bucket.
Yes.
Because her other points that she got, I think, was off of foul. So it was free throws.
Yeah.
So this was her first bucket, which was great just to see her come in and play with the team. And she also provides speed. So I wish I could see her play more as well.
Me too, yeah.
Sandy is not, she's always hesitant to play her rookies. Fiebich is technically a rookie, but Fiebich has been playing in Europe for some time now. But yeah, I hope to see Marquisha Davis a little bit more against some of these other teams, whether it's the Sparks, Chicago, just to give her a chance to be out there and get used to playing with the team. Because depending on injuries and who you have, you're going to need to play her, and she's going to need reps. She's going to need minutes to get comfortable. Like Fiebich. It took Fiebich some time to get comfortable. It took Dojkic some time to get comfortable. We were hating on Dojkic for a little bit, like, who is this girl? But, she played with confidence last night. It's going to be the same for Marquisha Davis. She's going to need to get out there at times. And I do think Sandy can use her and she's good, but you won't really know until she plays and until she makes certain mistakes and can adjust. And these are the games where you need her to play. You need to let her shine.
Yeah. But, overall, like you said, wasn't necessarily the best games for the Liberty. But they did just enough to get the win. Mm-hmm. And I think that, maybe last year they probably would have lost that game. Even a team like the Sparks would have maybe beaten them last year. But they're more resilient this year. And with Sabrina's leadership, if she continues to play at that level, sky's the limit. It was a 30-plus point game in the career, tying New York Liberty records with Cappie Pondexter. So that tells you the level she's playing right now. And when you have Sai with 31 points, 8 assists, and 6 threes, I don't think that, anything can happen to you when you have Sai by that level. And that's one thing of a beauty. And I really hope that, she could continue at that level. We don't talk about Sai as like MVP. But she's on the MVP level as well, Sabrina.
Yeah, when people in the stadium were yelling, I think they were yelling MVP to JJ because JJ's having a phenomenal year. But Sabrina is different than she was last year. She is definitely more decisive. Just her ability to play both ends of the court, she has improved on so much. Last year, we were saying, like, man, we wish Sabrina would get into the paint more and not just settle for threes. She needs to develop that mid-range shot. And this year, it's a more complete Sabrina. And I know she's not done. So, I'm just happy she's on our team and that she's going to keep improving. Because this year, seeing her drive, seeing the floaters, seeing her passing with JJ, just that connection between her and JJ, or the connection between her and Stewie as well. It's such a huge difference from last year that you can tell that Sabrina, she wants this championship. She wants to get back to the final, and she has that, Mamba mentality when she's on the court. She is pumped up. You could tell if they lose, she hates to lose. Yeah. She is quiet in post game. She is so serious.
You don't want to ask her questions after a loss, so
don't ask her stupid questions after a loss.
Stewie would make the effort, but Sab, she's like, man,
she looks so serious. Versus, she is pretty serious even if they win. But when they win, you could just see the joy and how much she loves the game, but how much she has worked so hard from when we've seen her rookie season to now. It's a complete transformation.
Yeah.
She is becoming that all-around complete player, and she's not even done yet. So, yeah, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. in the future. But right now, she's on a tear, especially with JJ. So that's huge for the Liberty right now.
Yeah, that's definitely huge. And with 18.6 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists, and 1.1 steals. Those are, MVP stats if you're counting out Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, and Alyssa
No
Thomas.
one is counting out Asia or Nafisa.
Yeah, but she's on the MVP level, and I'm definitely looking forward to see her continue growth. So that's it for today. We will come back on Sunday. We will record our next podcast on Sunday after the back-to-back that the Liberty would have played. So Saturday at 3 p.m. They're playing against the Sparks again. And then on Sunday, they're flying to Atlanta, 3 p.m. Eastern time again, to face the Atlanta Dream. So we'll be recording a podcast after that game to cover those two games. And we'll get to talk about, in the next podcast, we didn't get to talk about it today, but we'll talk about the upcoming Commissioner's Cup final game against the Minnesota Lynx and the debacle of the arena and how the WNBA handle it. But it will require a little bit more time, which we will talk about in the next podcast. But thank you so much, guys, for listening to our podcast. We're always grateful for you listening to us rambling about lovely Liberty. But thank you for the support. And as we always say, Felicia,
let's go Liberty!